eight wickets is on paper. It looks like a comfortable victory, and I think we grew into the game where progressively we were the better side. I think the last 2 days of the series test, we certainly were the best side. But I think the eight wickets doesn't remember the fact that New Zealand dropped more catches than I think I've seen a side drop ever, and it wasn't like these were tough chances. In fact, actually, probably the toughest chance, which Glenn Phillips bagged from Harry Brook, I think maybe Harry Brook. I'm not sure who it was that he caught, but anyway, the tough chance was taken, and on some of the ones that you really expect to be taken, a couple that slip, a couple out in the deep, were not. And the eight wickets, yes, looks comfortable, and probably England deserved the win, but New Zealand certainly allowed England to grow into the game. And I wonder whether we go into the next match with New Zealand thinking the age old adage of catches win matches.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on England
Well,
over
that's
New
it. I mean,
Zealand indeed actually, yeah.
yeah, I mean, catches with matches. I mean, it's just it's such a basic principle, but it's true. You know what I mean? As you said, there were so many far easier chances dropped than some of the really good catches that were taken, which is I think when New Zealand look back, they're going to be so frustrated because there was times where they really had England on the ropes. To be honest, I mean, I think it went in that second innings when Root was out for a duck, which is it's something you never. You always have to sort of look twice, don't you, when you say Root's out for a duck because it doesn't happen very often. But at that point, England were 45 for three,
And
and
71 for four, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so we were still sort of 270 behind with approaching kind of half hour batters back in the dressing room. So yeah, there was moments where New Zealand could have really got on top of us, and through a mixture of England coming back well and New Zealand not taking easy chances, they weren't able to do that. But no, I mean, I think New Zealand they showed glimpses of why they won so comfortably in India earlier this year, and obviously that was a big part on India's side of just them kind of just falling apart. But we saw some real quality from New Zealand. I mean, Williamson was unlucky not to get to his 100. He looked very comfortable. It was a pretty decent delivery from Atkinson to remove him. Um, Phillips 58 not out. He held that sort of the middle order together when there was a sort of the likes of Mitchell and Blundell went pretty cheap. I think neither of them reached 20, which I think will be disappointing from a New Zealand perspective. But no, I mean, I think New Zealand are probably thinking, as you said, Peter, on paper, an eight-wicket defeat sounds pretty comfortable, but I think New Zealand will be I think they'll be pleased in the fact that they're not that far away from probably doing the same to England. I think in terms of batting, they had chances and they looked pretty decent throughout, really. And yeah, I think it's just going back to the whole that catches thing. I mean, take a few more of those catches, and all of a sudden, we're getting a lot less than 499 in that first innings. Let me tell you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the telltale innings or partnership was Harry Brook and Ollie Pope, and I think Ollie Pope got 77. It was Ollie Pope that was caught on that amazing catch. By the
Mm.
way, it wasn't Harry Brook. Yeah, but Harry Brook with 171 from 197 balls. That's a bit outrageous, really, isn't it? Like, to be able to hit at that sort of strike rate in Test cricket, especially after his team needing a bit of help, is remarkably impressive. And then actually ably supported as well by a couple of big hits down the order. We'll come on to Ben Stokes in a second, but Gus Atkinson 48 from 36, Bryden Cast 33 from 24. We bat. And Shoaib Bashir is probably a proper number 11. That was it. Chris Martin was the New Zealander 11 that genuinely was the most number
Yeah,
11 ever. I think Shoaib Bashir is of that ilk. But apart from that, we really do bat down all the way. Like Gus Atkinson has 100, and he's batting at 9, and he scored a strike rate of 133 in that innings.
yeah,
Um, it's it really is when we've got a good score on the board already. Adding 70 odd, 80 runs really, 80 runs between the two of them is so useful. Um,
Yeah.
but actually, on Ben Stokes getting his 80, I think was a pretty good thing to see there. What do you think about his test, Paddy? Because he we've seen the team for the test coming, and he is in it, and he has been bowling, but he did hobble off. Do you think he had a good test all round, or room to improve?
Yeah, I think he did. I mean, to be honest, he didn't. I'm just looking, obviously, looking back at the how much he did actually bowl. He bowled about 19 overs in the match, and obviously he probably would have bowled more if he didn't go off injured
Mhm.
in that second test. But no, I mean, overall, I think he'll be pleased. I think I read a stat where it's like under McCullum, it's the fifth time where we've won the first match of a series abroad.
That is quite a good
Which,
fact, actually.
yeah, I mean, if you think of, and obviously one of those was India. When we ended up doing exactly the same as we'd done the previous two in India, we won the first one and then just kind of fell apart for the rest of it. But no, I mean, I think Stokes will be pleased on a kind of on a team level. The fact that we've made a winning start, and I think he'll be probably pleased to get a decent score under his belt because I know it's with his injuries, and I know he's not really been at his fluent best at times this year. I think he'll be delighted. I think just to get some runs under his belt and yeah, just to be able to kind of come in and support players around him really. Because I imagine as a captain that's exactly what he wants to do really. So yeah, I mean, brilliant for him personally. And yeah, I think he's shown that. I think what was it? It was when he said during the week. I think there was like he was chatting about like how he knows in himself that he doesn't have that long left, and I think it was around the whole debate of whether he's going to keep on bowling. And to be honest, I do think we are getting to the stage where we probably don't need him to bowl, but we need him to bat. So I think it will get to the point where he is in as just a batsman, and I think we'll have the bowlers elsewhere to kind of get the job done. So yeah, obviously it's a shame for him, going off injured, but obviously it's not too bad, and we just kind of hope that it doesn't sort of reoccur in this test and he ends up having to hobble off again because that'll just add some more frustrations.
Yeah, I think it just ultimately comes down to how we can keep him useful. You've got to have him in the team. He's still a world beater on his day, and he's still one of the best players in England in the world, full stop. So you've got to get him in the team. And I think actually that it kind of leads into the debate now that's sort of circled around the fact that Ollie Pope has looked comfortable back down the order, and Jacob Bethel hit a great 50 at three. And Jamie Smith is potentially or you expected to come back into the team as the keeper in Lure. We've got Ollie Robinson of the keeping world in on the tour as well. And it's kind of like, well, and I admit that I kind of thought this is when the series started, is it was that if we are bringing Bethel in at three, giving him, by the way, as well, a 2 year contract, central contract 2 year, and also um, putting Pope down the order with Jamie Smith to come back in. I was just thinking that England were thinking straight swap. Pope will go out, in comes Smith as soon as he's fit again. But actually, and again, if he does well in this test too, if Pope does well, does he stay? Do they move Stokes? Do they move Smith? It opens up a bit of a can of worms really if Pope does well. There's also I still think he could probably just stay at three and Bethel comes out of the squad, but it's um it's a hard one to tell really after all that. Do you think?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think I'm pleased for Pope the fact that he's been moved down a position and he did look, as we said, he got out to a worldie of a catch, which wouldn't 9 times out of 10 that's probably not going to get taken. But Pope was unlucky in that sense. But I mean, he just looked comfortable, and that's one thing about Pope is he's played so many games at three, and you know, there's the odd time he'll sort of buckle down and get the runs, but there's just the amount of times where he's there and he looks like he's jittery. He doesn't look like he wants to kind of open up and kind of take the game to the bowlers. It's almost just like he's trying not to get out. And I think as a number three in this team, you can't really do that. But obviously, you look opposed to Bethel. I mean, coming in at three, gets 50 off 37. Eight fours and a six. I mean, that's. I feel like that might also be the kind of attitude what Stokes and McCullum want in their number three, and maybe not. This was done. It took everyone by surprise. Let's be honest. I mean, when we saw the team and it's like, so we've got a guy who's never batted above four, hasn't scored a century. We've got him at three on his Test debut, but I mean, he looked. I mean, in the second innings, he's only there. He only faced what 6 overs worth of deliveries, but he looked good. He looked aggressive and didn't
Yeah,
take too many risks. And I think that that's what we kind of that's what you kind of need in this team. You need to be able to be aggressive, but not take risks, which is also a bit of a juxtaposition because those two things don't always go hand in hand. But there are a
as
few
we've
players in
seen
that.
from the India tour. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a few players in this England team who are kind of getting that. It's like I can be aggressive but not risky at the same time. And I mean, I think, as you said, if I mean, it would be interesting if Bethel gets a century in the second test, and all of a sudden you're thinking, right, what on earth do we do for India next year? Because I mean, they kind of made it clear that Smith was going to be the number one. He's only here because he's about to become a dad, so he's obviously back in England. He would have been there in other circumstances. Honestly, if I think Smith will come back in, and I think if Bethel does have a good second test, and all of a sudden you might be thinking, well, you know, do we really need Pope in this team? And to be honest, with an informed Smith and an informed Bethel, Pope doesn't get in. In all honesty, I don't think.